Before we begin this story of resilience, courage, and the fight for life, I want to invite you to join our community. If you enjoy stories that explore the depths of human experience and celebrate the strength of the human spirit, please subscribe now. Your support allows us to continue sharing narratives that inspire hope and touch the heart. Click the subscribe button and become a part of our journey. Now let's begin. The shrill ring of the phone sliced through the quiet afternoon, jolting Amelia from her gardening. The scent of freshly turned earth and blooming petunias, usually a source of peace, was instantly replaced by a wave of icy dread. It was her daughter, Sarah, gasping for breath, her words fragmented with panic. Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the sudden silence of her suburban haven. Sarah, usually so vibrant and full of life, a bubbly teenager with dreams as big as the Texas sky, was struggling, describing a crushing tightness in her chest, a burning sensation in her throat. Amelia, a registered nurse with years of experience in the ER, recognized the symptoms instantly. A severe allergic reaction, possibly anaphylaxis. A cold sweat broke out on her brow. She screamed at Sarah to grab her EpiPen, the one Dr. Peterson had prescribed after the last incident with the bee sting at the county fair, but Sarah's voice was weakening, fading in and out like a dying ember. "Mommy, it's not working," she choked out, her words laced with terror before the line went dead. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the frantic pounding of Amelia's heart and the buzzing in her ears. Terror, raw and primal, seized Amelia. She knew every second counted. Anaphylaxis could close Sarah's airways in minutes. She dialed 911, her hands trembling so violently she almost dropped the phone. The dispatcher's calm, professional voice was a stark contrast to the chaos erupting in Amelia's mind, a small island of reason in a sea of panic. An ambulance was dispatched immediately, the dispatcher assured her, asking for her address and the gate code to their gated community, Serenity Ridge. The name now seemed like a cruel joke. Amelia fumbled for the code, her mind racing, replaying Sarah's laughter, her bright smile, the plans they had made for her upcoming 16th birthday. She gave the code to the dispatcher, picturing the ambulance speeding towards their home, sirens wailing, lights flashing, cutting through the afternoon traffic. She grabbed her keys from the hook by the door, ready to meet them at the gate, to guide them through the maze of manicured lawns and identical houses. But as she raced out the door, a chilling thought struck her, a dark cloud looming over her already frantic mind. The new HOA president, a notoriously difficult woman named Beatrice McMillan, had recently implemented a strict new gate policy. No emergency vehicles were to be allowed through without prior authorization from the HOA board, a rule Beatrice herself championed with an almost zealous fervor, citing noise pollution and community safety, as if the sound of a siren was more disruptive than the silence of death. Amelia remembered the heated arguments at the last HOA meeting, the raised voices, the frustrated sighs, her own pleas for common sense and human decency falling on deaf ears. She had argued that emergencies don't adhere to HOA schedules, that seconds could mean the difference between life and death. But Beatrice had been unmoved, her face set in a rigid mask of self-righteousness. Now, that policy, that petty bureaucratic rule, was a death sentence for her daughter. Amelia reached the gate, her hands shaking so violently she could barely punch in the code. The gate stubbornly refused to open, remaining stubbornly closed, a symbol of the bureaucratic nightmare that was about to unfold. A recorded message, cold and impersonal, echoed from the speaker. "Invalid code." Amelia's blood ran cold, a wave of nausea rising in her throat. She frantically pressed the call button, her voice rising in desperation, her carefully constructed composure crumbling under the weight of her fear. "This is an emergency. My daughter is dying. I need to get out. An ambulance is on its way." A cold, officious voice answered, laced with a chillingly detached authority. "This is Beatrice McMillan, HOA president. Please state your business." Amelia's voice cracked, tears welling in her eyes, blurring her vision. "My daughter, Sarah Johnson, is having a severe allergic reaction. An ambulance is on its way but the gate won't open. I gave the dispatcher the code but it's not working." Beatrice's voice was icily calm, devoid of any empathy, any hint of human compassion. "I'm sorry, Ms. Johnson, but you know the rules. No emergency vehicles without prior authorization. Perhaps you should have thought of that before you decided to live in a gated community. We have a process to follow." Amelia's world seemed to tilt on its axis, the manicured lawns and pristine flowerbeds of Serenity Ridge transforming into a surreal landscape of horror. Beatrice McMillan, in her petty power trip, her obsession with rules and regulations, was blocking the ambulance from saving her daughter's life. Rage, raw and blinding, surged through Amelia, a primal scream trapped in her throat. She slammed her fist on the call box, the force of the impact sending a jolt of pain through her hand. "You're killing my daughter," she screamed, her voice hoarse with desperation and fear. "You're standing there, hiding behind your rules, and you're killing my daughter." But Beatrice had already hung up, the line now silent, the call box mocking her with its impassive surface. Amelia was trapped, her daughter was dying, and a vindictive HOA president stood in the way, a gatekeeper of life and death. She had to find a way out, and fast. She couldn't afford to waste another precious second. She looked around frantically, searching for an alternative, any escape from this nightmare. The high walls surrounding the community, designed for security, now felt like a prison, trapping her inside while her daughter gasped for air. She had to think, she had to be smart, she had to find a way to break through this wall of indifference and save Sarah. Amelia's mind raced, adrenaline fueling her actions. She couldn't afford to panic, not now. Sarah's life hung in the balance, every breath a precious commodity. She knew arguing with Beatrice was futile. The woman was entrenched in her self-righteousness, a gatekeeper blinded by her own perceived authority. Amelia needed action, not words. She glanced around frantically, her eyes scanning the perimeter of the gate, searching for any weakness, any crack in the seemingly impenetrable wall of Serenity Ridge. The manicured lawns, the meticulously trimmed hedges, the pristine flower beds, all symbols of suburban tranquility, now mocked her with their serene indifference. They represented a world where rules trumped human life, where order was valued more than compassion. She spotted a small access gate, usually used for landscaping and maintenance, located about 50 yards down from the main entrance. It was secured with a simple padlock, a flimsy barrier compared to the electronically controlled main gate. Hope flickered in Amelia's chest, a tiny spark in the overwhelming darkness of her despair. She sprinted towards it, her lungs burning, her heart pounding in her ears like a war drum. As she reached the access gate, she saw a groundskeeper, a young man named Carlos, trimming the hedges nearby, oblivious to the life and death drama unfolding just a few feet away. Amelia rushed towards him, her voice hoarse, her words tumbling over each other in her desperation. "Carlos, please. I need your help. My daughter is dying. The ambulance can't get through the main gate because of the HOA president. I need to get out." Carlos looked up, startled by Amelia's frantic appearance, his eyes widening with concern. He recognized Amelia. She was always kind to him, often bringing him cold drinks on hot days. He knew her daughter, Sarah, too, a bright, cheerful girl who always greeted him with a smile. He could see the genuine terror in Amelia's eyes, the raw desperation that mirrored his own fear when his little sister had been rushed to the hospital last year. He didn't hesitate. "Senora Johnson, of course. I'll help you." He fumbled for the key to the padlock, his hands shaking slightly. "I always keep it with me," he mumbled, his brow furrowed with concentration. He unlocked the padlock, the heavy chain clinking as it fell to the ground. Amelia didn't wait for him to open the gate. She pulled it open herself, the hinges groaning in protest. "Thank you, Carlos. You're a lifesaver," she cried, her voice choked with emotion. She ran through the gate, not knowing where she was going, only knowing that she had to get to the main road, to intercept the ambulance, to guide them through the maze of streets. As she burst onto the main road, she saw the flashing lights in the distance, the wail of the siren growing louder. She waved her arms frantically, jumping up and down, trying to catch the driver's attention. The ambulance slowed down, the driver peering through the windshield, trying to make sense of the frantic figure waving at them from the side of the road. Amelia ran towards the ambulance, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "My daughter. She's in Serenity Ridge. The gate." The HOA president blocked the gate, she shouted, her voice barely audible above the siren. The paramedics jumped out of the ambulance, their faces grim. They recognized the signs of panic, the desperation in Amelia's eyes. "Ms. Johnson, please try to calm down," one of the paramedics said, his voice firm but gentle. "Tell us what happened." Amelia explained the situation, her words tumbling over each other in her haste. She told them about Sarah's allergic reaction, about the EpiPen that didn't work, about Beatrice McMillan and her iron-fisted control over the gate. The paramedics exchanged a look of disbelief. They had encountered difficult HOAs before, but this was beyond anything they had ever experienced. "We'll take care of it, Ms. Johnson," the paramedic said. "You get in the ambulance. We'll get to your daughter." Amelia climbed into the back of the ambulance, her heart still pounding in her chest. The paramedics quickly hooked her up to a monitor, checking her vital signs. They knew she was under immense stress, that her own health was at risk. As the ambulance sped towards Serenity Ridge, the paramedics contacted the police, explaining the situation. They knew they would need backup to deal with Beatrice McMillan. The police dispatcher assured them that officers were being dispatched to the scene. The ambulance reached the gate, the paramedics activating the siren, the piercing wail echoing through the quiet streets of Serenity Ridge. Beatrice McMillan emerged from her house, her face set in a mask of disapproval. She approached the ambulance, her arms crossed, her expression defiant. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cold and officious, "but you cannot enter without prior authorization from the HOA board." The paramedics ignored her, jumping out of the ambulance and rushing towards the gate. They tried the call box, but Beatrice had clearly deactivated it. They then attempted to manually override the system, but the gate remained stubbornly closed. Just as the paramedics were about to force the gate open, the police cars arrived, their sirens wailing, their lights flashing, cutting through the afternoon calm. 2 police officers approached Beatrice, their faces stern. "Beatrice McMillan," one of the officers said, "you are under arrest for obstructing emergency medical services." Beatrice's face paled, her carefully constructed composure crumbling under the weight of the officer's words. She tried to protest, but the officer cut her off. "You have the right to remain silent," he said, reciting the Miranda rights. "Anything you say or do can and will be used against you in a court of law." The officers handcuffed Beatrice and escorted her to a police car. As they drove her away, Amelia watched from the ambulance, a mixture of relief and anger swirling within her. The gate was finally opened, the ambulance speeding through the streets of Serenity Ridge towards Sarah, towards hope. But the image of Beatrice's face, contorted with anger and disbelief, remained etched in Amelia's mind, a stark reminder of the bureaucratic nightmare that had almost cost her daughter her life. The ambulance raced through the streets of Serenity Ridge, its siren wailing, a stark contrast to the quiet, manicured lawns and pristine flower beds. Amelia sat in the back, her heart still pounding, her mind replaying the frantic moments at the gate, the chilling indifference of Beatrice McMillan, the desperate race against time. The paramedics worked quickly and efficiently, monitoring Amelia's vital signs, reassuring her that they were doing everything they could. They had contacted the hospital, informing them of Sarah's condition, preparing them for her arrival. Every bump in the road, every red light, felt like an eternity. Amelia gripped the side of the gurney, her knuckles white, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She pictured Sarah, lying unconscious, struggling to breathe, the image fueling her anxiety, her fear threatening to overwhelm her. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the images, trying to focus on the hope that Sarah would be okay, that they would reach the hospital in time. The ambulance finally arrived at the hospital, the doors swinging open, revealing the bustling emergency room, the controlled chaos of doctors and nurses rushing to and fro. Sarah was quickly wheeled into the trauma room, a team of doctors and nurses already waiting for her. Amelia watched, her heart in her throat, as they worked on her daughter, their movements precise and efficient, their faces focused and determined. They administered medication, hooked Sarah up to monitors, their voices calm and reassuring. Amelia stood by, helpless, her hands clasped together in prayer, her eyes fixed on Sarah's pale face. The minutes ticked by slowly, each one an agonizing eternity. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the doctor emerged from the trauma room, his face etched with fatigue but his eyes holding a glimmer of hope. "She's stable, Ms. Johnson," he said, his voice gentle. "The medication worked. The allergic reaction is subsiding." Relief washed over Amelia, so intense it almost made her weak. Tears streamed down her face as she thanked the doctor, her voice choked with emotion. She was allowed to see Sarah, who was still unconscious, her breathing shallow but steady. Amelia sat by her daughter's bedside, holding her hand, stroking her hair, whispering words of love and reassurance. She stayed there for hours, watching over Sarah, her heart filled with gratitude and relief. As Sarah began to regain consciousness, Amelia was there, her voice soft and soothing, her touch gentle and reassuring. Sarah's eyes fluttered open, her gaze focusing on her mother's face. "Mommy?" she whispered, her voice weak. "I'm here, sweetheart," Amelia said, her voice trembling. "You're going to be okay." Sarah drifted back to sleep, her breathing now normal, her color returning to her cheeks. Amelia stayed by her side, watching over her, her heart filled with love and gratitude. The next day, Sarah was moved to a regular room, her condition improving steadily. Amelia stayed with her, never leaving her side, showering her with love and attention. Sarah recounted the events leading up to the allergic reaction, explaining that she had accidentally eaten a cookie that contained peanuts, a known allergen. She had grabbed her EpiPen, but it hadn't worked, possibly because it was expired. Amelia made a mental note to get a new prescription filled immediately. As Sarah recovered, Amelia's thoughts turned to Beatrice McMillan, the woman who had almost cost her daughter her life. The police had released Beatrice on bail, but the charges of obstructing emergency medical services still stood. Amelia knew she had to press charges not just for Sarah, but for everyone who lived in Serenity Ridge, for anyone who might face a similar situation in the future. She contacted a lawyer, David Miller, a seasoned attorney with a reputation for fighting for justice. David listened to Amelia's story, his face grim. He assured her that he would do everything he could to bring Beatrice to justice. The legal proceedings were long and arduous, filled with paperwork, depositions and court hearings. Beatrice, represented by a high-powered attorney, tried to argue that she was simply enforcing the HOA rules, that she had no intention of harming anyone. But the evidence was overwhelming, the testimony of the paramedics and the police officers damning. The judge ruled in favor of Amelia, finding Beatrice guilty of obstructing emergency medical services. Beatrice was sentenced to community service and fined heavily. The HOA was also forced to revise its gate policy, ensuring that emergency vehicles would have immediate access in the future. The ordeal had taken a toll on Amelia and Sarah, but it had also brought them closer together. They had faced death together and they had survived. They had learned the true meaning of community, the importance of compassion and empathy. They had also learned that even in the most serene of settings, danger could lurk, and that even the most well-intentioned rules could have unintended consequences. The scars of the incident remained, but they were also a reminder of their resilience, their strength, and their unwavering love for each other. They had faced a nightmare and emerged stronger, their bond unbreakable, their love a beacon of hope in the face of adversity. The trial was over, the verdict delivered, but the aftermath lingered. The media had a field day with the story, highlighting the absurdity of the HOA's policy and the callousness of Beatrice McMillan's actions. Serenity Ridge, once a symbol of suburban tranquility, was now synonymous with bureaucratic indifference and near tragedy. Amelia and Sarah found themselves the subject of unwanted attention, their story recounted in newspapers, on television, and across social media. While some offered their support and sympathy, others criticized Amelia for making a fuss and bringing unwanted attention to the community. The whispers and stares followed them everywhere, a constant reminder of the trauma they had endured. Amelia realized that they couldn't stay in Serenity Ridge any longer. The place, once a symbol of their comfortable life, was now tainted by the memory of Sarah's near-death experience, the image of Beatrice's cold face, the suffocating feeling of being trapped behind the gate. They needed a fresh start, a place where they could heal, where they could rebuild their lives without the constant reminders of the past. She put their house on the market, accepting an offer from a young family eager to move into the now famous Serenity Ridge. The sale was bittersweet, a mix of relief and sadness. They were leaving behind their home, the place where Sarah had grown up, the place filled with memories both good and bad. But they were also leaving behind the fear, the anxiety, the lingering sense of vulnerability. They decided to move to a small town on the coast, a place where life moved at a slower pace, where the community was close-knit and supportive. Amelia found a charming cottage overlooking the ocean, a place where they could breathe fresh air, where they could hear the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, a soothing balm to their troubled souls. Sarah, initially hesitant to leave her friends and her familiar surroundings, soon embraced the change. She found a new school, made new friends, and discovered a passion for surfing. The ocean, with its vastness and its power, seemed to wash away the fear and the trauma, replacing it with a sense of freedom and renewal. Amelia, too, found solace in the beauty of her new surroundings. She volunteered at the local clinic, putting her nursing skills to good use, helping others in need. She joined a book club, made new friends, and rediscovered her love for gardening. She started painting again, capturing the vibrant colors of the sunsets, the serenity of the ocean, the beauty of the natural world. Slowly they began to heal. The nightmares subsided, the anxiety lessened, the fear began to fade. They learned to laugh again, to dream again, to embrace life again. They had faced a tragedy, but they had emerged stronger, their bond unbreakable, their love a beacon of hope in the face of adversity. One sunny afternoon, Amelia and Sarah walked along the beach, hand in hand, the waves gently lapping at their feet. They stopped to watch a group of children building sandcastles, their laughter echoing in the air. Sarah turned to her mother, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "Mom," she said, "I'm so glad we moved here. I feel free." Amelia smiled, her heart filled with love and gratitude. "Me too, sweetheart," she said. "Me too." They continued their walk along the beach, the sun setting on the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant colors. They had found their serenity, not in a gated community, but in the simple beauty of nature, in the warmth of human connection, in the unwavering love they shared. They had learned that true serenity wasn't about walls and gates, but about the peace within, the strength to overcome adversity, and the courage to embrace a new beginning. They had faced a nightmare and emerged stronger, their bond unbreakable, their love a beacon of hope in the face of adversity. Their story was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of love, and the enduring quest for serenity, not in a place but in the heart. If you enjoyed this story of resilience and the power of human connection, and if you believe in the importance of empathy and compassion, then please subscribe for more stories like this. Your support helps us share tales that touch the heart and inspire hope. Click the subscribe button now and join our community of story lovers.